Season 3. We're back. Rocking the pastels. It's time to roll. Sweeney, new college basketball season's here.
It's crazy that it is. I mean, it was even more crazy the fact that like the day before college basketball started in the city of Chicago, it was 70 degrees, and I was like, "What's going on? Like, I don't know what we're doing." Now we're frozen again. I was like walking around like bundled up all weekend. So we're back to cold weather and college basketball, which is one and the same if you're from the north like I am. But I mean, it's been great to have it back, and certainly the schedule a little lighter on the light side the first week, but still some crazy action, and it gets much, much crazier from here. So excited for the journey and excited for the journey with you, B.
Yeah, it's going to be another fun season. Season 3, we'll keep it coming every single week. We're going to try to start the week with the Sweeney 7 as we do, and some weekly awards. I thought it was interesting before we get started that if you're a college basketball fan, you love to start the season because there's been a lot of unpredictability, which we'll talk about. But if you're not, the debate is how come there's not like a big bang to start the season and kind of like these primetime matchups to get the viewers that love March Madness to kind of tune in maybe at the beginning of the season. Your thoughts on that before we start?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a problem before this year, and this year just magnified it because we didn't have Champions Classic as this, tent post on opening night. I think we've seen for the first
24 hours of college basketball either.
Right. No marathon yet, which has been gone for a little longer. The Champions move was because of Election Day, dating back to 2020. The goal is like, let's make sure everyone has an opportunity to vote, and that's obviously very important. I know that's something that you've worked with groups that are incorporated with that, and it's simply I think that we both really value. But because of that, the season started on a Monday instead of a Tuesday, which meant the Champions Classic couldn't go on Monday because that's an ESPN property, and ESPN's doing Monday Night Football on a Monday. So, there are certainly different ways that more leadership would have brought us a better outcome in terms of let's find a better day that works to start things off than having 100 teams play bye games on opening night. But look, here we are now. I think at this point, people will still watch the Champions Classic if it happens on the 15th instead of the 7th. People will still watch the Maui Invitational and the PK 85, which should be a great event. So while the sports start was so kind of underwhelming in terms of big brands the first week, really from the 15th through the 30th, it's as good as it gets because start with Champions Classic. You have Gonzaga at Texas. You have neutral court games between Baylor and Virginia, UCLA and Illinois. You have Gonzaga versus Kentucky. You have Maui. You have PK 85. Then you have ACC Big Ten headlined by North Carolina and at Indiana. So, I think a lot of the conversation, the schedule stinks to start the year, will go away very quickly because we are about to hit big game overload, which is a great thing.
Beautiful thing. Big game overload. Okay, so let's talk about let's go straight to some SWAC love in the Sweeney 7. Let's go straight to it. Tell us about, obviously we had some major upsets. Grambling beats Colorado. Alcorn State beats Wichita State. And Texas Southern beats, I don't remember.
Arizona State.
Let's kick it swacking with the SWAC.
Yeah, and even some of the ones that didn't quite get over the finish line, right? Pine Bluff and Solomon Bozeman, they nearly knocked off TCU on opening night, a ranked TCU team led by 20 in that game, and then competed pretty well with Oklahoma. So, I mean, look, it's a league that we talk about a lot on the show. It doesn't get a lot of love nationally, but there are so many circumstances that I think lead to the records that you see from so many SWAC teams. And a lot of it is that you're playing a lot on the road. You're playing against these high major teams. And it's nice to see them break through and get some big wins that people will realize how much talent there is in this league and why it's a fun place to watch basketball. I think the other thing too, we've talked about it so much over the past couple of years, like it is so hard to win on the road. And the SWAC gets an opportunity because of its partnership with the Pac-12 to get 3 home games against Pac-12 teams,
which is huge.
And so far, we're waiting on the third game, which I believe Washington State versus Florida A&M. I could be wrong on that matchup, but I think it's something along those lines. I know it's Washington State is playing the third one. so far the SWAC teams are 2-0 when they play on their home court.
Yep.
And I obviously that's not exclusive to the SWAC. I think if you put MAC schools or Southland schools, if you gave those teams opportunities to play on their home court, they would win more of these games than they do right now.
Yep.
And so there's been criticism of the Pac-12 for giving away those games, and I think that's fair because look, I mean, it's without structural change, this is basically a self-inflicted wound, if you will, for the Pac-12.
Right.
But I give the Pac-12 credit for stepping on a limb and giving these teams an opportunity to play these home games. And at the end of the day, like if you're a Pac-12 team, these are games you still should win. They are hard to win. It is much harder to win on the road. It is much harder when you have to travel and you have to go into a potentially raucous environment. But if you're Pac-12 school, you should still win. Like let's not excuse their performances in this. And the SWAC teams have earned those wins. But I do think it's a good reminder, like, hey, not easy to do this thing on the road. And so I wish we got more opportunities to see, Big Ten teams go on the road and play a Horizon League team.
Right.
You know what? Why Youngstown State just pushed the heck out of Notre Dame the other day. Pretty sure Youngstown State would have won that game if that was in Youngstown.
Right. Yeah, it makes a huge difference to have those games, and you just never get to. Very rarely do you get the 2-for-1s to be able to come back because most of the time it's just a money grab, a fundraiser for your program. I am curious. Washington State doesn't play FAMU because FAMU played Oregon already.
That's
I'm
right.
pretty sure at Oregon. So, what are your thoughts of them even doing this concept in the first place? Obviously, a great concept, but what's your thoughts on it?
My thought is that, like from the Pac-12 standpoint, obviously there's huge value, like educationally for the student athletes and whatnot. But like, if I was a coach in the Pac-12, I'd probably be kind of pissed about it, right? Like, and again, like you should win regardless. But if I was a coach in the Pac-12, like you're on an island here, right? Like if everyone in high major basketball had to play one of these road games, you'd say, okay, like we lost our game, everyone had to do it. But like instead of just buying Texas Southern, Bobby Hurley had to go to Houston, loses that game, and now Bobby Hurley's feeling more heat, right? Like if I'm Bobby Hurley, I'm not pleased about this whole affair.
Right.
So my viewpoint is that it would be better if everyone did it because the fact that only one league's doing it is probably going to encourage no leagues to do it.
Right. 100%. What made the Pac-12 do it?
It was the aftermath to everything we saw in 2020 and some of the I think it's a great thing, right? I think it was coming before then too, right? Because you had the Thon Maker move was obviously huge, or not Thon, but Cure Maker at Howard. I think there's been an understanding at the kind of HBCU level that, or at the high major level, that HBCUs deserve more love, deserve more respect, deserve more opportunities to grow out of being kind of seen as less than. And this is a great thing for them, and it's a great educational opportunity for the players who get to go and experience HBCU culture for a weekend. But again, from the basketball standpoint, if Colorado winds up on the wrong side of the bubble because they lost to Grambling on the road, I'd imagine Tad Boyle won't be all that pleased about the whole arrangement.
Yeah, the fact that they're 2-0 so far, the SWAC schools, really impressive. I'm not surprised, to be honest, just because those environments are extremely hard to play in, like any home environment that has any kind of a following. So tip our hat to the SWAC. Job well done on the home and on the road. Let's go next to Imani Bates, 27, number 2. He's back. He balled out versus Michigan. 5-point game, almost got the win. Imani Bates, 30 ball. Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, good for him, right? Like, he still has his question marks as an NBA prospect just because, he doesn't necessarily defend. He's not really a point guard. But what was great about watching that game was that Imani Bates looked like himself. He looked confident. Like he was having fun. Like there's been so much pressure put on him from the time he was 14 or 15 years old when he was put on the cover of Sports Illustrated and anointed the next Kevin Durant and all of these things that probably weren't fair to him at that point in his development. He felt you could see that pressure on him, and for him to be able to go out and just hoop and just make tough shots and show off why he is a really interesting prospect, regardless of the NBA or whatever. That was awesome. And I'm looking forward to the fact that there will be a spotlight on him the rest of the way because of that performance. People are going to be watching and seeing how he fares. And I know Eastern Michigan has a couple of, bigger games still left on the schedule. And obviously in conference play, they play some big ones. That league is always very, very competitive. But how about this at the end of December at South Carolina, Amani Bates versus Gigi Jackson?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a prime time matchup as far as two highly touted former number one players in the country.
A lot of NBA scouts will be making the pilgrimage.
Yeah, they should, and good for Imani Bates. Even after what happened with the whole charges thing and everyone kind of making a big deal about it, and then charges getting dropped, is from what I understand, he's not going to be put in a position where he gets to continue to play. So just the fact that he gets to do that, and now he's able to get on the other side of all of that cloud and just hoop, just good for the kid to be able to get back, because I think sometimes people forget how much pressure is on a young kid like that when you're put and you're anointed that early, whether you chose to be or not.
It's almost, I think it's probably been worse for him than anyone ever before, because there's never been a guy this anointed in this era, right? With social media and LaMelo Ball, I think would probably be like the most recent example before him. And LaMelo kind of had his own experience, went overseas.
Right.
A kid, like so few guys have really gone through what he's gone through, because as big a deal as LeBron was, or a big a deal as Kevin Durant was, or any of these guys were out of high school, it was a very different time in terms of what you were exposed to.
It wasn't the social media. It wasn't the social media era.
Right. And Amani could never escape that. He never can escape that for the rest of his life. He will always be in the spotlight. People always know his name. And hopefully it's not just, he was a bust. Hopefully there's a good end to this story, because, I do feel bad the position and again, he's not blameless in all of it, right? He's had his ups and downs as a player. He has earned some of the criticism he has gotten, but he also never asked for or earned the undue attention that he's gotten, and the fact that he's had to live under a microscope for the last 4 years and grow up like this. It's not fair to him. Right. So it's great that he's got an opportunity to go back home and hoop for his alma mater, or not his alma mater, but his hometown school.
Yeah, hometown school. Yeah, hometown school. And an interesting take on this too is think about Kwame Brown. Right, he came out. He had a lot to say about not being a bust, and talking about basically he's got my mama house. I'm a multi-millionaire. Like, I stayed in the league this long. People kind of label him as a bust, but sometimes you can forget. But the dude's a human too. Like, you know what I mean? You're able to be human in this whole thing too. So anyway, moving next, the word of the week. What would you say it is?
Unpredictability. I mean, it is wild. We do our awards, and we'll share those with you at the end. I was trying to figure out who should be the team of the week. And it was hard because there were so many teams that their weeks were so divergent.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how if you told me at the beginning of the week that Temple would beat Villanova, you'd say they're the biggest winner of opening week. They've kind of made their statement. They've arrived. This was a team that we were very excited about, that could break through, that could be an NCAA tournament team. Glad they beat Villanova. That's huge. Yeah, but they also lost to Wagner. Right. How did that work? Right? Colorado loses at Grambling, was down big in the second half. That was a 9-point game. It was not as close as 9 points a lot of that way. They go on the road 48 hours later, not even 48 hours. It was Friday night into a Sunday afternoon.
Right.
And they don't just beat Tennessee. They hammer Tennessee in the second half. They
on the road.
And this is a Tennessee team that 2 weeks ago hammered Gonzaga in a charity exhibition that was very competitive. That was not a scrimmage. That was not, that was not, everyone's feeling everything out. That was well-played basketball game.
Right.
And Tennessee worked Gonzaga. It's nuts. So I just think it's very hard right now to really separate results. And I think the biggest thing you have to do, if you're kind of looking at it from the 30,000 foot view that I have to for my job, is obviously you want to learn from results, but you don't want to overreact to one game or two games, because there's so much variance. For outside of a very few truly elite teams, most teams are capable of putting up a performance like Colorado did against Tennessee, and most teams are capable of putting up a performance like Colorado did against Grambling. And then how do you sort through that? You can't yet. You need a larger sample size.
Right. What do you say? I have a couple ideas on what the contributing factors are to that. What do you think first are the contributing factors? And I'll give you a couple that I think.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is literally just player mentality, going into games. And that's obviously not changed that much over the years. Obviously you dealt with it when you were coaching, like where a team's mentality is going in. But like, if you're Colorado, like you walked into that gym at Grambling thinking there's no chance you lose, right? Like you're gonna walk in, get some dunks off, like hopefully put a highlight tape together that can go on Instagram, and then you're gonna go play Tennessee in 48 hours to see what happens. Like you're excited about Tennessee, you're looking ahead.
Well, you're looking ahead for sure,
right? So all of a sudden you turn, like I say they went Temple. You got this huge game, right? You got this huge game Friday night against Villanova at home. All the students are going to be there. It's going to be a huge deal. If we win this game, we're going to storm the court. Everyone's been telling me how great we are. Right. How do you get hyped up for Wagner? You don't. You're hyped to start the season, but you're not hyped up to like go play and go compete.
Right.
And I just think when you have a team in that spot, they're very vulnerable to go get beat.
No doubt.
And I think obviously there's certain things, kind of bigger picture, right? Like I think some of the struggles you see from teams are because they have such new rosters, and you see a team that maybe has experience. They're also teams are hard to scout this early, right? Like I referenced earlier in Notre Dame versus Youngstown State. I was watching that game yesterday afternoon. Youngstown State's big man put up 27 and 10. He averaged 7 and 7 at Northern Kentucky last year. His name is Adrian Nelson. All he was like a garbage man. Like come in, compete on the glass, like just a toughness, physicality guy. He comes in this game. He's drilling threes, like running up and down the floor. So there's an adjustment from a scouting standpoint that I think still needs to happen. So you're kind of working more on your base stuff. So I think it's a combination of all those things. But I think the biggest thing that has driven the unpredictability is just the mentalities coming into games. And I just think it was very obvious when you look at this, like who was motivated to play that day in some of those games. And
I think to go with that, both those things are spot on, 100%. Well said. I think to go with that, the transfer portal has changed the game, because now I just did the Wyoming Southeast Louisiana game on yesterday. And normally a Southland Conference team would not be able to have that much talent. So the fact that every team in the country can put enough talent on the floor to beat people on a given night, it's not about the talent anymore like it used to be. There used to be a big talent discrepancy where you just may not have good enough talent, but now everyone should have good enough talent. There's 2,000 kids in the portal. There's junior college, there's high school. You have all these places that you can select players from. And I think it just gives, like you just said, the scouting aspect is hard, because it's like, wait a minute, he only averaged 6 and 3 at his last school, or 2 and 2. So you don't really know what you're getting. But yet now that kid, Imani Bates example, he's in a new environment, new place, new outlook, and they ball out, So it's not a matter of having enough talent anymore. And kids don't care as much about the level that they go through once they're in the portal. They just want that opportunity, and it kind of gets that chip back on their shoulder. So I do think that has a lot to do with it. Well, let's talk about number 4, Sweeney 7. Games in weird venues are awesome. Break that down for us.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of like the aircraft carriers done takes after they played the Gonzaga Michigan State game, and there was wind and whatnot. And like, I see the issues with the outdoor games, but I was at the game in Milwaukee, the Brew City Battle, which was a matchup between Stanford and Wisconsin, played at the Brewers baseball stadium. And like, that was just sick. I think it was just the coolest thing in the world. Like, I'm walking like on home plate at a Major League Baseball stadium, and 2 seconds later, there's a basketball game like right in front of me. It was nuts. I mean, the fans turned out, which was obviously a great part of it. I know the pictures from the aircraft carrier game were great. Again, there's challenges with all of these. Oftentimes you see kind of bad sight lines and shooters struggle. That was a huge deal. In the Wisconsin game, I think neither team shot over 20% from 3. It was not pretty, but like, it's one game out of 30, and it's a cool experience for the players. It's a cool experience for the coaches. It's cool for TV. It's cool to bring in fans who are interested. I just thought it was a great thing, and I hope that we continue to get unique, different venues and opportunities to see college basketball on different stages. And again, obviously, playing outside is very tricky, but outside of that, like let's bring college basketball to different places and put it on the map in other, in different venues, and give ourselves something to get excited about, right? Like, it's a 4-month season, it's a long year. It can get monotonous. Like, let's experiment, be unique, and not everything's going to work, but like, let's give it a shot.
Yep. I love it. I don't have a lot to say about that other than I second that motion.
If you were a head coach and someone offered you a game on an aircraft carrier, would you take it?
I mean, I think you almost have to. It's like what an experience for your program. What a stage to be able to play on, literally and figuratively, right? So I think, yeah, if you have an opportunity to do something different outside the box, coaches are always thinking about how can we win.
Right.
But if you feel secure enough in your ability to win, then you can start thinking a little more outside the box and having some fun and letting your guys have different experiences and letting your program get a different light in association. So I don't want to say no brainer, but I think if you have opportunities to do it, I think why would you not?
My favorite quote was from Izzo, Tom Izzo said that like he hoped that the wind would kind of be like a golfer who's not very good, but he's in the wrong shots and is blowing it the right direction. Hope the shooters would get the same little love. So
no doubt. I mean, the good thing is both teams are playing in it. It's just one side probably has a little bit different win than the other, but both teams are playing in it. It's not like you're playing to win and they're not. I mean, you're playing outside and they're not playing outside. Yeah. Let's go to San Diego State. I think one of the best mid-major programs, not only in the last handful of years, but this particular year, I think they have a chance. Unfortunately, a few years back, they had an undefeated number one type of team, Final Four type of team. Unfortunately, COVID happened, so they didn't get to play out that year. But I think this team they're not maybe as good as that team because it's hard to do, but they do have a lot of the makings to be a really good Sweet 16, Elite 8 type of team. Talk about San Diego State.
Well, I mean, we were both in Fort Collins last year for that San Diego State-Colorado State game.
Yep.
And it was just such a slog for them to score. And you knew how good they were. You knew how hard it was to score on them because of Mensa. But, like, if you scored 70 on that team, you won the game, right? The game was over.
Possibly even 65.
Right. Yeah. And there were games where San Diego State did not get over 60. Big games where they could not get over that hump. And the question was, the two transfers that they brought in, the two high-profile guys. I know they have other guys who caught it, but the point guard Darian Trammell, who comes from Seattle U, is one of the best players in the WAC, and then Jaden Leday, who was a top like 75 recruit, went to Ohio State, transferred to TCU, then transferred again, and sat out last year. Would those guys really kind of turn the tide? Would they make that difference offensively and give this team a chance to go into an Elite Eight or a Final Four game and have a chance to win if the game gets up and down? And I thought early on they've shown that they might have that upside. Like, they didn't play great against BYU. They gave up 75 points. That's very uncharacteristic for their defense.
Right.
But Trammell and Leday put up 44 of their 82 points, and they did it efficiently. And Trammell was 21 points on 13 shots, and Leday was 23 points on 16 shots. They both lived at the free throw line. Like, they both contributed to something other than just scoring too. Like, Trammell can really pass. He's a good good ball hawk defensively. Leday's a good rebounder. He's big. He's physical. Like, that has changed the outlook of this team. And that's why I have them as a top 15 team of the preseason, and team I thought could be, a dark horse Final Four caliber team. I don't know that they have a Malachi Flynn on this team like that 2020 group did.
Absolutely.
Man, can they be pretty darn good if those two transfers keep playing like this. Like, they won a game where they gave up 75 points and Matt Bradley shot 3 for 16 and scored 6 points.
I was just about to say, Matt Bradley is still arguably their alpha on their team. They're returning first team all-conference player. I think I saw some footage of him getting some extra shots up on the court as soon as the game was over. A worker and a dude that you just know, like, when all those guys get it going offensively, because their defense, anybody's defense is not what you want it to be right now. But as the season goes on, that defense is going to get tougher and tougher. And I just think this is a team to really watch out for and love what they're doing out there on the West Coast. All right, Penn State. Shooting is elite out there with the Nittany Lions.
I mean, look, if you like kind of like an NBA style spread offense where guys have freedom to go make plays and make shots, you're going to like watching Micah Shrewsbury and Penn State. Like, they've made, in their first 2 games, they've made 34 threes. That's a good number. There's going to be a lot of teams that don't hit 34 for 4 games.
That's decent.
That's decent. They have Butler tonight. We'll see if it continues. But man, oh man, like this, like, they are very small. They have a very clear identity, and I think that's one of those things you look for early on, especially with new coaches. He's in his second year in Shrewsbury.
Yep.
Like, do you see where they're built, like what they're building towards, and what they want to look like? And it's so obvious what Penn State wants to look like. They found a way last year to win some games despite not having the pieces to really do what they want to do. And now you turn them on and you see, man, the ball moves from side to side. There's a pace to their offense. They've got 3 guys on the floor at any given time who could call a point guard, who could make a play on a ball screen, who can hit a shot off the bounce, which is really obviously a skill you do not find that much at that level. Jalen Pickett, mid-major transfer, Cam Winter, mid-major transfer, Andrew Funk, mid-major transfer. Like their 3 dudes in the backcourt are all guys who transferred up, who have a chip on their shoulder or something to prove, and they're just really, really hard to guard. We'll see how their bigs hang in the Big Ten. They're really young up there. They don't have a lot of experience, but they're going to play such a unique style to the rest of this league. And I'm excited to see how they fare because, when you're used to playing against the Hunter Dickinsons, the Trace Jackson Davis, the Zach Edey's, and those type of 7-foot pounded type teams and pound type styles, and Penn State comes to town and they're bringing you out into space and putting you in ball screens and letting their guards cook, like that's not going to be an easy prep. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Penn State doing some different things and seeing what they can do once conference play starts. It's all exciting. I think Minnesota had that exciting preseason last year. Unfortunately, had a little bit of injuries when the conference play started, but the Big Ten is there's no easy nights. So as good as it looks now, I'm hoping they can continue, but good for Shrewsbury to get it going and have a unique style that he's kind of made his own. After a slow start, what we got?
I mean, we got everything, right? We talked about it at the top, but starting with Champions Classic, I mean, it's just every day you have multiple really good games. Gonzaga, Texas, Iowa, Seton Hall, these MTEs, the first weekend of MTEs, right? The Charleston Classic and the Myrtle Beach Invitational. Those are usually high level. They have good mid-major teams. I know like Loyola Chicago, UMass, Colorado State, like they're all in those early events. You slide into the weekend, Kentucky at Gonzaga. It's going to be an amazing environment in Spokane. Houston at Oregon could be a really, really high-level game. The Maui Invitational field is as good as it's been in a long time, certainly as balanced as it's been in a long time. You mentioned San Diego State. They're in it. Ohio State, Texas Tech, Creighton, Arizona, Arkansas, Cincinnati, and Louisville. Like that's just an incredibly high-level tournament. Battle for Atlantis with Dayton and Wisconsin, USC, Kansas. That's, again, a really, really high – Tennessee, that's a really high-level tournament. Into PK85 once every 5 years, but it brings together Duke, North Carolina, Michigan State, Alabama, Villanova, West Virginia, Purdue, like all of these high-level programs and high-level coaches. Like you could spend all offseason watching the film of the games from these 2 weeks and just learning something about basketball. Like if you're trying to learn offense, trying to learn the ins and outs,
the clinic.
That is the next 2+ weeks are a clinic of basketball coaching. So
yes,
I'm excited about it. I'm excited to head to Port. I'll be in Indy for Champions Classic. I'll be in Portland for the PK85. So stay tuned for content from that. But I just can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm sneaking myself into one of those. See if Kevin's going to take a guess and know which one I'm going to go to.
I have no idea, but
I'm not broadcasting. I'm just going as a fan of the game.
I mean, I wish you were coming to PK85 to come hang out. But
I know I should be going to PK85, but some of us have to work. Some of us don't have cooler jobs. We can go where we want to cover basketball. We have to go where we're told a little bit.
Where are you headed? My
Texas Gonzaga on Wednesday in the building.
That's right. How about that?
The new arena. It'll be the biggest game in the new arena at Texas. They did.
I want to go there. I want to see that. I heard it's crazy.
Oh, it's gonna be nuts. They did sell out against Houston Christian already, so it's gonna go down. High level game. Obviously, Drew Timme coming back home. He's from Dallas, but Texas is still home, so it'll be a high level game. We saw how good of a game Michigan State was. I got to go with the hometown team, the home state team. I'm a Texas guy, so I think Texas is kind of has an underrated team. They have a much better fit for, in my opinion, Beard's style of coaching, along with they just did a good job of not just getting everybody who could score out of the portal, but they have some good returners. They have some good young guys, but they also have some really good role players and some guys who just sell out to being a star in their role. So I'm excited to see that game and that matchup. And obviously last time, those that are back returning from last year's game at Gonzaga, they have a taste in their mouth. They definitely don't want to leave. So I'm going to go with Texas on that one, but it's going to be a high-level game. I actually call a game on Friday night in Dallas, so I said I'm going to come in early, and one of my former coaches has season tickets, so I'm in there.
I love it.
Sneaking in. All right, let's go quick awards, and then we will let you guys enjoy some college basketball. Let's go HBCU first. We sometimes do that last. The team of the week, kind of obvious, even though there's been some big games won by Texas Southern. We talked about winning against Arizona. Alcorn, we talked about beating Wichita State. But Grambling is the team of the week, beating Colorado on their home floor in a pretty dominant fashion. Anytime you can beat a Power 5 in that kind of fashion, you don't ever get the home game opportunity. So they took full advantage. And I love the scene of the coach dancing in the locker room. Viral footage right there. But this is what college basketball is all about. It's not March Madness, but for those teams, it is.
Yeah, I mean, what an awesome win. Again, if you have questions about Colorado's quality, look what they just did to Tennessee, right? Like, that's a great win. That's the win that, could maybe be the difference in avoiding the first four if you make it to the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, that's maybe get you off the 16 line, right? Maybe, and we've seen, Norfolk State back in the day when they beat Missouri as a 15. If you get a game that's more winnable, you might have a chance, right? I mean, there's been one team to ever win as a 16 for a reason. It's really hard to beat those.
Really hard.
The higher you can work your way up, the better chance you have. And so these needle moving wins can help with seeding, and certainly Grambling deserves a ton of credit for how they played. And I'm sure they have more opportunities coming up on the schedule. We'll be watching those as well to see if they continue to build a good resume. But yeah, I mean, they go to Arizona State, they go to UTSA, they go to Vanderbilt, they go to Virginia Tech, go to Wisconsin, right? Like, I guarantee those coaches are asking their scheduling guy why they pick Grambling. But see how that goes.
Good luck with them. HBCU Player of the Week, starting one of those wins. He was our HBCU Player of the Week several times last year. A player that is transferred now from, if I'm correct, Houston product, transferred from VCU, then went to Colorado State. Now he is at Texas Southern. PJ Bird.
No, PJ Henry. PJ Bird was PJ, another Houston kid.
I was wrong. You are correct. I didn't catch that. I saw the PJ. I didn't catch the last.
PJ Henry started his career at Hartford and then transferred.
Please forgive me, PJ Henry. There's a lot of good PJs at Texas Southern.
But PJ Henry balled out. I mean, he 22, 4, and 4 was the best guard on the floor against Arizona State. And again, Arizona State backcourt. Former top 50 recruit Frankie Collins, former 17-point a game at Brown and starter at Nevada Desmond Cambridge. Their bench, double-digit scorer DJ Horn, former top 75 recruit Luther Muhammad. Who was the best guard on the floor that day? PJ Henry.
Gotta love it.
PJ Henry, all of 5'10", best guard on the floor.
Led him to a win and a huge victory. Tip our hat to PJ. Job well done. And now we'll go to mid-major player of the week. We're going out to Santa Clara. The last time they had a really good mid-major player out there, he just got drafted to Oklahoma City. I'm not saying he's going to get drafted, but they've had some good ones in Santa Clara recently.
Whew. Yes, they have. And I think this is a great example of Brandon Podziemski. He's from Wisconsin. He was a huge scorer out of high school. Gets a later Illinois offer and commits. Doesn't get a real opportunity to play. Just, I think, a good example of a guy who probably went a little too high for what he wanted to be. Right? He wanted to be an alpha dog. He's always been an alpha dog. How are you going to go to Illinois and be like a spot shooter? Right. And that's a great opportunity. It's a great place to play college basketball. But if you want the ball in your hands, go somewhere where you're going to get the ball in your hands. And Santa Clara is a place that their guards have a lot of freedom to go make plays, make shots. They run really good stuff. And he's got 230 balls in 2 games. So shout out to Brandon Podziemski from Santa Clara. I believe AirPods is his nickname. So we'll see if AirPods got a little extra in the tank coming up this week.
AirPods, let's get it. Mid-major team of the week. There was a lot of teams. You kind of talked about the unpredictability. A lot of teams got some good wins. There's a Sam Houston shout out I can give real quick. They beat Oklahoma.
Friend of the program.
Yeah, friend of the program, guest of the program. Coach Hooten and the boys, shout out. But they played a 9-1 after that, so it doesn't mean they don't deserve it. It's just a lot of people got big wins this week, so it's kind of a tricky week. You have Stetson got a really big win against Florida State. There's been a bunch of them. So anyway.
Yep. Also, if you're talking about mid-majors, you played mid-majors. I mean, St. Mary's got 3 great wins over Vermont, Oral Roberts, and North Texas. Yep. I know North Texas was coming off the flu, but a win is a win. It will still count the same on the net sheet at the end of the year. Yes, Toledo, Todd Kowalczyk loses a draft pick in Ryan Rollins. They turn around, they beat UAB and Jelly Walker on a neutral court. It was a great win for them.
Great win.
But our team of the week is UC Irvine. For beating, and not just beating, but really punking Oregon. I mean, they were up 25 in the second half, 27 in the second half, excuse me. And Oregon kind of trimmed it down late. But Oregon is a team loaded with talent. I mean, they've had their struggles the last 2 seasons with kind of piecing it all together. There was a ton of optimism that they would be better this year. I still think they have an opportunity to be.
I mean, top 25 team. They're 21, I believe.
They were at the time and falling out, obviously, this week. But incredibly talented, and they got hammered by a really good, really well coached UC Irvine. Russ Turner every year they're competitive at the top of that conference, and probably a great win for their program to get kind of the validation of beating a program like Oregon that is so competitive every year. And they've got some good tests coming up against WCC teams, Loyola Marymount and Pepperdine this week. So. Don't be surprised if UC Irvine wins at least one and maybe both of those games as well.
Yeah, shout out to UC Riverside, who did get a big win against Loyola Marymount as you bring them up. A lot of big wins kind of grabbed by different teams in the mid-major ranks that kind of beat teams above them, and then also beat really good mid-major teams, as you highlighted. Wasn't a lot of high major matchups. So the high major team of the week, a little bit of a clear-cut easy one in this one and our choice.
Well, I mean, again, it would be Colorado if they had not lost to Grambling, and it would be Temple if they had not lost to Wagner. But here we are. So it has to be Gonzaga because they have the best one of the week. Beat Michigan State on the neutral court, found a way to grit it out. I think they have some stuff to work through, right? I mean, their guards are, their guards have not played to the level of, a Gonzaga point guard, like a Jalen Suggs or an Andrew Nembhard just yet. And that's okay, right? They're younger guys. They're still kind of figuring it out. Maybe they will get there. Maybe they won't. But it's a great win to beat Michigan State. And they're going to have to lean on it because, like you said, I mean, the schedule is no joke because you're going to go see them in Austin on Wednesday. They're going to go back to Spokane, play Sunday, against Kentucky. Then they're going to go PK 85. And then, oh, by the way, they settle down after that and head to Sioux Falls to play a neutral court game against Baylor. So,
love it.
Markview's not afraid. Markview's not afraid.
No, good for him. I mean, he's a little bit of him has been criticized that he's only played neutral court games and home games, and only road games have come in conference play, which a lot of people feel like are not equal talent road games that he's playing. So, good for him that they're playing such a schedule. And I think it's probably helping them because they've gotten so close to cutting down the nets. I think he wants to cut down the big nets. He's done the undefeated season. He's done the number 1 ranking, number 1 seeding. Like, let's go win one. So I think they are going bigger, which I appreciate and I respect. Not that they care what I think, but that's what I think. High major player of the week. The team didn't get it done, and I can go back.
Well, they got it done some, but they didn't get
it done for the week. They did get it done in the big one. I can go back and say I was actually texting with a former colleague listing off some of the guys that we recruited on the staff when I was at UTEP, and how they're doing now. Marcus Sasser was a big one. We obviously didn't get him. Recruited him. This was our point guard board in that class. Marcus Sasser, Isaiah Stevens, he's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
The player of the week, who we're about to talk about from Temple, he was on it. So anyway, we knew what we were looking at. That's all I want to say. We knew what we were looking at.
And that player of the week is Damian Dunn, who is I believe a North Carolina kid.
He is. He played for Stackhouse Elite.
And so how about this? So opening night against Wagner, he goes for 27 on 9 shots. How does he do that, you ask?
Free throw line.
He was a cool 18 for 18 at the free throw line.
18 of them.
I kind of wanted to give him the award just because he made all his free throws.
And it's 18 of them.
All 18. But they turned around against Villanova and dominated the game. Again, 22 points, really efficient, can really make shots. This team is fun to watch because they have 2 really good guards in Damian Dunn and Khalif Battle, who can flat out score the ball at any level and could play anywhere in the country.
Yep.
And if you don't know those 2 names, you're going to want to get to know them very quickly because they are a problem and they have a chance to be in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely.
Would have helped if they hadn't lost to Wagner, but they still have a chance to be in the NCAA.
Oh, this is
long season.
It's going to be fun. And I actually get to broadcast their game against SMU in Dallas in conference play next semester. So looking forward to seeing it.
It's a great game.
Yeah, up close in person. It'll be fun. So that is it for our Coast to Coast. We have any closing news that you want to end with, and then we're out.
Nothing new. Just about to hit the road. Very excited for the next couple of weeks.
When do you leave?
For Champions Classic? Well, I got to go. I'm leaving at like noon tomorrow because I got to leave. This is going to make me feel real old. So we started this. We started the show right when I was a senior in college. I was waking up in my college apartment in Evanston. I was doing the show. We were doing it like 6 a.m.
The background's a little different now.
The background is a little different. The budget went up a little bit,
and we had to do it around the class schedule and around the
class schedule. Yes,
yep.
Sir.
Kids on my side, class on your side.
Absolutely. So classes, classes are no longer a thing for me. But before I had the Champions Classic, I'm going to a Northwestern class and speaking to a bunch of students. They wanted me to come back and
Look
talk.
At this guy.
I feel very old. I'm like worried that I will have seen some of these kids at like a Northwestern party. So I'm a little worried about that. But hey, I'm excited to share any knowledge that I have, which is probably useless. But
is there a particular topic you're speaking on?
I think just kind of how to navigate like the sports media world. I think it's the flow of it. So
I like it.
I gotta do some preparations.
I like it. I can't wait to hear all about it. I wish somebody would video it. Is it gonna be one of those like streams, or we're gonna say
I don't think the rest of the world wishes it was streamed. Not sure what advice is coming from me.
I love it. I can say this as a graduate and a proud alum of the Sweeney Broadcasting School. I will say, I'm sure you're going to drop some good gems. I'm sure it's going to be good. So thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week. Safe travels. A lot of great hoops to watch, and we'll be here to talk about it again next week. Stay safe. Be blessed. Keep it real.